Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Listen with Vobes. I'm Richard Vobes, and today we're going to continue with our reading of a book by James John Hissey, The Charm of the Road. We're on chapter 7, and I do hope that you will join us. Just a little preamble here. If you are watching, you can scrub past this, of course. It's been asked if I can sort of set this rolling beforehand so that people get an idea of the notification. In the old days, when we used to do this, you could set everything up and you could get the chat facility up and running and people would know that you were doing the live. Now, it might be that I just haven't used this for so long, I can't remember how you set one up in advance, and there probably is a way of doing that, but I can't remember. Anyway, the lovely Julia is out there. Hello to the lovely Julia, and hello to anybody else who fancies coming along. And if you do fancy coming along, do join us in the chat just to say hello. And part of the preamble of this is to remind you that we are using the side-by-side maps, the geo-reference maps, and I can't remember where we got to be honest with you. So I'm going to copy into the chat the location so you can find it very easily on that one. And we're also using Google Maps. I've started here in Guildford, but I know that we went away from Guildford. I can't remember where we ended up. And I will place this in the map, in the chat, so you can have two tabs and find out where we are, hopefully. So that's what we're doing. Excuse me. And also, do let me know if for any reason that there's buffering, or people get you can't hear me for anything. Because sometimes when I'm looking at the information here, it'll say little warnings that we're not working properly, and then people say we're working perfectly fine. Anyway, today, no hat, no scarf, no jacket. It's reasonably warm, although it will get cold. I can feel it getting a little bit colder. So hopefully all things are working tickety-boo. So we're on chapter 7 on the book, and I will endeavour to read it to the best of my ability, and I hope you enjoy the story. We will stop, of course, to look up on the maps where we go and what's going on. So with that all said, assuming you can hear me and see me, and that a few people will pop along as and when, grand. And if you're watching on the rerun, of course, you can check these things out much easier by pausing the video stream, can't you? Right, so I'm not quite sure where we were. I'm just having a quick look where they got to. I think they were at the bush. That's right, let's just work out where it was. I forget the Farnham, was it? Was it Farnham? It wasn't Farnborough. I think it was Farnham. So before we start, just whilst we're waiting for a few people to come up, let's go back to this maps. And there is you can just see it in the very corner. There's a little search bar. Now, the maps that I'm using, which works pretty well, are the Ordnance Survey maps from 1913. It says here the OS 6-inch, 1888 to 1913, and it's the I can't remember now. It's the 6-inch one. So use that, and I'm just going to type in there so you can put in the name. It's very useful, this Farnham, and it will take you. You can get rid of that so we can see it. And here is the town of Farnham, and it was at something called the Bush. I shall do the same with Google Maps, Farnham, and put that in. I seem to have clicked the wrong button there. This is one of the... How do I get rid of that? Oh, there we go. Not sure how I get it back again, but never mind. There we are. There's Farnham on the maps. Brilliant. Okay, so chapter 7. Next morning, whilst taking an early stroll round the town, we noticed some picture postcards in the shop window. Now, we always make a point of glancing at these productions, as by so doing, we frequently have had our attention called to something of interest in and about the place where we chance to be that otherwise we might have missed. From photographs, moreover, one can form a fair opinion as to whether the place or the scenes represented on them are really worth visiting. One has not to rely upon an artist's drawing that may be greatly imaginative, so the strictly correct, if uninspired, photograph is a great help to the traveller in search of beauty spots or quaint old buildings. It's interesting, I think postcards still exist and you can still do that, but I imagine most people these days just look at these things on their phone. Sorry, I've still got the map up there, I beg your pardon about that. I'll just make sure that we are still recording. Marvellous. Now, amongst the number of photographs displayed in that shop window was one of an old inn with "The Jolly Farmer" shown on its signboard, and at the foot of the card was printed Cobbett's birthplace. That Cobbett was born at Farnham I vaguely remembered, but that the house he was born in still existed, or where it was, I had no idea. I purchased the card and learnt at the same time, without extra charge, that the house was just outside Farnham to the south, only about 5 minutes' walk from here. So, after obtaining some directions how to get there, I went off in search of it. And apparently it's now buffering. I'm not quite sure. I'm getting it. Julia's saying it's buffering. I don't know whether it's buffering where you are. If you're watching the rerun, it's probably not buffering because it sort of records differently. We recommend that you stream a bit rate of 6,800 kilobytes. So let me know if it's continuing to buffer, and I will try and change the stream bit rate, although not too sure how I do that whilst I'm live. The road was not difficult to find, though to make sure we asked our way from time to time as we proceeded. Everybody knew the Jolly Farmer. I have frequently noticed that you hardly ever fail to get directed to an inn or a public house. The way, too, either appears to be very familiar to the local inhabitants of the place. The road to the public house is also known. On my visit to Stratford-upon-Avon many years ago, I first asked my way to the Red Horse Inn, and this was promptly pointed out to me. Then I further asked where Shakespeare's birthplace was, and the same man replied, "I think it be a little up the next road, but I bain't quite sure." So there we are. People know where the pubs are, but they don't necessarily know where the cultural places are. At the outskirts of Farnham, having crossed the riverway that is, by bridge, we discovered the Jolly Farmer right in front of us. It is a neat-looking building of some size, with a long red-tiled roof, and an old gable at the end of it, having a tall chimney at the side that breaks the two straight roof line. The walls are yellow-washed, which tint gives the house a sunny appearance. The windows are leaden lattice ones, in keeping with the old building. Beyond is a background of dark-leafed trees that throws the house into strong relief. Talking about William Cobbett, of course. Now, let us go and see if we can put in to Google the Jolly Farmer at Farnham, and we'll see if it comes up. Oh, it does. And the Jolly Farmer is still there on a road called River Hill. I don't know if you can see that. Let's put our little fella in and have a look at the so-called house. Is this it here? I guess it is. There is very little to see of the place, which is extraordinary. But there it is. I wonder if we get to see it better. Let's get past this van and have a look here. Ah, here we go. Here we get a much better view. I'm going to just sidle up that way a bit. Now we see these sort of buildings quite a lot without really thinking too much about it. But there is a house next to it, and I wonder if that was William Cobbett's birthplace, as said in the text. Whilst I'm here, I suppose we ought to try and find where we are, but I don't know where we have actually gone, so I'm just going to come out of this. The Jolly Farmer at Alton, temporarily closed, it says. So is that the same place? I'm just looking for Farnham. Is that... We've got Jane Austen's house. I'm just reading a book that claims that Jane Austen didn't write the novels that she did. But let us just turn this round. I've lost the Jolly Farmer now. That is typical. The Jolly Farmer at Alton. I'm just trying to find Alton. Farnham, rather. Basingstoke. So is that the right place? Hang on a minute. Let's just... I want the one in Farnham. Let's just have another look. Farnham. Right, there's Farnham by all that green. Sorry, there's the Jolly Farmer. But oh yes, there's Farnham. So it's only a few miles down south west. So if I come out of here, I've now lost Farnham. Let me put Farnham back in. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. There's always this faffing about on here. There's Farnham. Right, so if we come back down here somewhere, there's all this... I wonder if it's down here somewhere. Abbott's Enclosure. Post. That's not the Jolly Farmer. You see, it's very easy. Ah, wait a minute. Right, okay. So you can see the pattern here. Can you see that pattern? It's sort of like a foot. Big fat leg here and a foot, and it's just up. So I think that is the foot. So it must be here. Here it is. There we go. We did quite well there. So... and there's a little chapel just up the road, according to this. But anyway, enough of that. We now know where it is. So welcome aboard all the others who've come, Mark Burgess and Jane UK. It's very nice to see you, and thank you for joining us in another of these readings. Sorry that these are a bit ad hoc. I have been quite busy with other things. So, Cobbett managed to be born in a pleasant-looking place and spot, more pleasant still, possibly, in his day, as it was then a simple farmhouse in the fields. Now there are buildings around it. My father, wrote Cobbett, was a farmer from whom, if I derive no honour, I derive no shame. Leading from Cobbett's birthplace, we noticed an inviting road that tempted us to explore it for a short space. On one side, it was a wooded hill and steep. On the other side was the River Wey. What I would love to know is if he gave us directions, but it may be that he has gone up here because he talks about the wooded. Mind you, he then mentions another bit of wood here, so perhaps he's going to Goose Green. Maybe he's coming down here, who knows? Well, let's read on and see where he's gone. Right, so... leading from Cobbett's birthplace, we noticed an inviting road that tempted us to explore a short space. On one side, it was a wooded hill and steep. On the other side, it was the winding way, the river. Okay, so it looks like he's going south, I reckon, because I think he's going down here, look. On one side, the woods, and here is the river. So, yes, we're quite right with the Goose Green. And if we look here, so this is where I think he's going. And if we put 3D on, I just need to put the book down a minute, and I need to remember how these controls work. we should get a sense that he said that's steep. It doesn't look steep at all if you put on the 3D, but maybe it's not as 3D as one would hope. Anyway, never mind. We'll carry on with the reading, otherwise we'll never get going. Right, the old mill. Sorry. Now, a road that runs alongside the river has always a fascination for me. So strolling on, we came to Weydon Mill, an ancient structure of much picturesqueness. Right, let's look for that. Weydon Mill. Let's see if we can find it. First of all, we'll have a look on here. We'll go back to this 2D. And we're looking for Weydon Mill. Here's the river. But is this the right? That's river something. I can't actually see the road is taken down by the river. There's Binstead. So I'm going to go back to this one. Just briefly. Can't find it. So what I will do is let's open up another one of these. How has he spelt it? Weydon Mill. And, oh, it's here. So I got it completely wrong. So actually, let's go back to the Jolly Farmer. He's talking about this road from what I can see. Although River Hill Farm, where is Weydon Mill? Now you may be looking at this and discovering that actually you can see it better than I can. But if we come back here, Farnham. Well, wait a minute. That's the A31. Weydon Mill. Let's have a look at Weydon Mill. See images only. So there are a few old images here. That's probably more like what he saw. That says 1906. So that's the mill in 1906. Mill and Lake. Down an old dirt track. It's probably what he was looking at. Wait a minute, these are different. Oh, that's Fellbridge. Here we go. So that's the only picture we've got. I wonder if there's anything more. We're not getting very far with this. I apologise. Weydon Mill. Let's have a look. Images. Oh, here we go. Weydon Mill, Farnham. That's a much better picture. Look at that. Let's open that in a open image in a new tab. There we go. Weydon Mill Farm. Now I'd love to see where it is and what it looks like today, but doesn't seem to be. I wonder if there's anything there. Weydon Mill Farm. Here we go. It is up a lane, but it doesn't seem to be anywhere near here, does it? So let's just, I'm sorry, I haven't really done very much reading, but let's see. Weydon Mill. So Weydon Mill there. Farnborough, Guildford, Weydon Mill there, but he just seems to be miles from where we were. He is all over the place. So where is that bit of land that he was in before? I don't understand, because maybe you. So he's down near Aldershot. Oh, well, there's Farnham. Oh yes, no. So he's gone down here. Look, he was down here, and he's gone back. There it is. He's gone back to. How extraordinary. We can't get any closer to it. The nearest we can get is on the A31. And it's boring as hell. Okay. Sorry about that. Little distraction. Right, let's go reading. So it is weird, his journey. He is ambling around all over the place. So strolling on, we came to Wilden Mill, an old ancient structure. The old mill with the glancing water below, the sleepy willows bending over the stream, and the dark firs beyond makes it a truly charming scene, just the spot to delight the eye of a landscape painter. The rush of water and the booming of the mill bring a dreamy deafness which seems to heighten the peacefulness of the scene. They are like a great curtain of sound, shutting one out from the other world beyond, wrote George Eliot of Dorlcote Mill. And the description aptly applies to the... George Eliot wrote of Dorlcote Mill, and the description aptly applies to the one at Weydon. I am grateful for the expression, a great curtain of sound. It is a thing I felt when close behind a loud humming watermill with the plushing gush of the weir beyond, but never could find the words to define what I felt. We left Farnham by the old highway leading Winchester. Though we did not travel on it far, but took a turning up a narrow lane to our right, just beyond the town. Curious enough, there's a picture here of something, but it's nothing in the story so far. Curiously enough, we speak of a road as moving, and not the traveller upon it. We ask, will this road take me to Dash? Where does this road go to? It's interesting, we do use that language, don't we? We talk as if the road is actually moving. It's not like we talk of a road as climbing the Cotswolds or crossing the moors. In writing and conversation, the road goes to places like those in that mysterious land discovered by Pantagruel. Oh, les chemins chemillants. Bit of French there, for those who don't know it. But then we talk of the sun rising and setting, though it no more rises and sets than the road goes. And this digression, just because I wrote of the highway leading to Winchester, when it suddenly struck me that the highway never leads or goes or climbs or descends or crosses hills, but it simply stands where it is. I guess they follow the road. If you follow a road, though, that implies that the road is moving. We were soon in the quiet country again, and amongst hop gardens that to my eye, with their clustered golden fruit dangling in the breeze, are quite as beautiful to look upon as the trim vineyards of France or Italy. But the vineyards are broad, and there must be some hidden virtue in the far away, otherwise so many writers would hardly have declared that there is. Still, I for one, I could never prize distant for distance sake. Our lane led us to a lazy land of still woods and tilled fields, but not a soul did we see at work in them, nor any vehicle or foot wayfarer did we meet for miles. We could not have been more alone in the wilds of Western America. The population of England strangely clings to the railways and the main roads. Away from these, you are in a land of peace. Well, that's certainly what they want to put back, isn't it, to keep us in the towns and out of the countryside. The curious thing in that sentence, in that little moment, was he talks of hop gardens in Surrey, and we always think of Kent being the garden of England with plentiful hop gardens. I didn't realise there were actually hop gardens in Surrey, and why not? But we don't think of that. After a time, we came to a desolate-looking spot where 4 lanes met at the corner of waste ground. Truly, there was a cottage or two nearby, but, no one within to whom ask the way. And a house uninhabited is like clothes without a body. Both give a depressing feeling of vacancy because of the pointed absence of humanity. Even a deserted moated grange may have its ghost, which gives a certain sense of companionship, but a deserted cottage does not possess this romance to appeal to the imagination, for never yet have I met with a haunted cottage. Ghosts, I fancy, have somewhat aristocratic leanings. They favour panelled chambers, mysterious staircases, long passages, and ancient halls. They are most particular as to the stage setting. At least during my many pilgrimages about England, covering much country and many hundreds, I may safely add thousands of miles, I have only once come upon an ordinary house with a well-established ghost, and this was a farmhouse at Halton, Holgate, in Lincolnshire. Hunting after haunted houses is, in one sense, a dispiriting sport, for though haunted houses abound, I never could run down a ghost, at least only once, and then it hastily ran away from me. It happened thus. I was staying with other guests at a genuinely haunted house in Scotland. The owner was a strict Presbyterian and always assembled his whole household for prayers, night and morning, in the large hall with a great window overlooking a dry moat and the garden beyond. It was the winter time when I was there, and every night during prayers a ghost-like figure would be seen dimly passing the great window outside the slope beyond the moat. The old family ghost. It was the talk of the house, and no one appeared to care to venture without at that hour. Indeed, our host was most particular that all his guests and servants should be assembled in the hall for prayers, so that, not to give offence, no one absented himself or herself without some good excuse. After 4 nights I conveniently had a bad headache, and I went to my room. But when prayers had begun, I stole quietly down the servants' staircase, let myself out by a side door, and, with a big stick in hand, awaited the coming ghost. He was always punctual, I had noticed. In the dark security of a big yew tree is where I waited, on the garden top of the dry moat, and in full view of the hall window, which was shutterless and curtainless. I did not wait long, for that night the ghost chanced to be pre-punctual. I saw a mysterious white figure coming quietly along. Just when it had arrived between myself and the window, I rushed at it with a raised stick. I heard quite a human shriek, and plainly saw 2 human feet beneath what I took to be a white sheet, but alas, I lost my balance and fell down to the bottom of the dry moat. I hurt myself somewhat, but so effectively did I scare that particular ghost that he or she never appeared again, at any rate not during my stay, though patiently we watched for every evening by the worshippers, who could both pray and keep sharp lookouts for ghosts. This is a bit of an unvarnished history. I could easily varnish it if I was so minded, and that is the sole outcome over 20 years of hard ghost hunting. I wonder who it was. Was it the host's servants, or an employed young lad or something who came up to the house in order to give the haunted house its sense of being a haunted house and therefore having guests at the house? Who knows? In one sense, I have said that hunting after haunted houses is a depressing sport. In other, it is very rewarding, for it takes you to all sorts of delightful old homes situated in remote nooks and corners of the land that, but for this novel and interesting sport, you would never have visited. Amongst the number of time-worn home lingers lovingly in my memory, I had heard much of this old hall, built in the 16th century, and of its ghost, which is said to have frightened away more than one nervous guest, from a friend who kindly drove me many miles to see it. Excepting that it was inhabited, moated, and cared for, it would have served for Hood's haunted house. For no house have I ever seen looked more the part, even in an unromantic photograph. It looked, reading as ever, tumbling over my words in the excitement to read. It would have served well for Hood's, whoever Hood is, his haunted house, for no house have I ever seen look more the part, even in an unromantic photograph. It looked it, which is surely a severe enough test. Maybe. I wish I'd brought a drink up now to have a gurgle with. To reach the place, we drove down on foot of a wooded valley, a hollow of beauty hidden amongst the hills, and there we came to a somnolent village of half-timber cottages that faced a tiny triangular green. The village had Now, I think he's talking about this same place in Scotland, not on our journey, which is a right old shame. The village had an age-worn look, as though it were tired of being so old. A dreamy spot remote from everywhere, to which a stranger should, I imagine, never or very rarely found his way. At the end of the village, a heavy lion-guarded wrought iron and rusty iron gate stood wide open. I doubt if it was ever shut. This gave access to a long avenue of stately Scotch firs, at the end of which stood an old hobgoblin hall, with weather stains upon the wall, and chimney huge and dark and tall. How exciting. The old rambling building, overrun with ivy, brought to mind one of the romantic creations of Samuel Reed, that famous moated Grangist artist of the Illustrated London News in the early 80s. This is the 1880s he's talking about. Only this was a picturesque reality of great gables, clustered chimneys, mullioned windows, and a big bell turret crowning all, not a vain imagining. Indeed, it might have stepped boldly out of one of Reed's drawings, even to the brooding sky above that hung over it poetically when it was there. A wide moat of weedy water encircled this relic of past times. This moat we crossed by a two-arched moss-grown bridge, where a drawbridge had once been, and found ourselves before a great nail-studded front door with a spy-hole in it, protected by an iron grille, so that a doubtful visitor might be safely inspected before the door was opened. And in these days of bailiffs and enforcement officers, perhaps we all should have one of these rather interesting spy holes protected by an iron grille. Within, all was profound peace. An almost solemn tranquillity prevailed in its ancient panelled hall, hung about with armour, and in its panelled chambers, with beruffled, fierce-looking ancestors adorning them. We were taken to the haunted room up a wide oak staircase, the steps of which were of solid blocks of wood worn slightly concave with the tread of generations gone long ago to rest beneath their marble monuments in the hoary church nearby. I wish that Hood, this reference to Hood, who is he talking about, had seen that haunted chamber. It truly had an uncanny look, with its walls covered with faded tapestry, its huge dark-aged oak four-poster, its curious cupboards, convenient for the ghost to hide in, its deeply recessed and shadowy mullioned windows, and its heavy, dark-beamed ceiling, not to forget the villainous-faced ancestor whose portrait hung over the open fireplace, the ghost of whom, for some misdeed committed in life, now is said to walk the room. I fancy few people would sleep comfortably in there, for after all, our surroundings do affect us. Otherwise, why do we take long and tiring journeys for a change of scene? A very good thought indeed. We are sort of drifting away into flights of fancy here, I feel. I have ventured on this brief and inadequate description of a dear and dreamy old world home, yet not too dreamy to be real, to show that the harmless hobby of ghost hunting, that through it you never know if you might run your quarry down, and it is not wholly unprofitable pastime, for the haunted house in question is but a sample of the very many other delightful, picturesque and romantic ones that fate has led me to, whilst in this happy pursuit of this uncommon hobby. I don't know what he's talking about. The ghost is but the excuse for a pleasant excursion into many tranquil nook in the land, and the mere remembrance of beautiful and possibly legend old-time houses in this way seen is a delightful possession in itself, at least for those who love old houses and feel the glamour of them. A sanitary faddist once told me, and told me very seriously, that a house ought to be pulled down after it had existed 100 years in order to destroy the microbes gathered there. What a sad and ugly world this would be if the faddists in it. What a sad and ugly world this would be did the faddists in it prevail. I knew he was trying to say that, and I stumbled over the words. Blimey. I'm so sorry about that, but I think he's going to admit that he has meandered from the text of where we ought to be. But I have been digressing again, and at length. One thought starts to another, and so I find myself wandering everywhere but on the road. To return to the 4 cross lanes, at this spot was a corner of wasteland, and on it a dry, disused well, covered with a roofed timber structure of some pretence, and intended to be picturesque, though why a well should be there at all was a wayside puzzle. On consulting our map, we found that what we judged to be the spot. On consulting our map, we found that what we judged to be the spot had the honour of being marked thereon well, which now serves to show how minutely accurate the ordnance maps are. We were in a tangle of narrow lanes, and as one lane appeared to be as narrow as the other, we simply drove straight on, and after a time we emerged on a descent by road which brought us to Odium. Finally, we are somewhere, and it gives me a break from the reading of these somewhat tedious the expressions of how he writes. I do enjoy it, but I have to say he does take a bloody long time. No wonder the books are thick and full of stuff, because he seems to talk a load of old nonsense for many, many times. But we do know that he has gone to Odium, so let us see where Odium is on the map. I think I've been there, actually, Odium. So and also I get the impression that he knows exactly where he's going. Odium is near Hook. Where's it gone? RAF Odium. Hang on a minute. I put Odium in, and for some reason it suddenly vanished. Because that is a field, that is not Odium. And here is Odium. I just want to see where it's near. Let's go back to this map. There's Odium. So that's interesting. He's been down to Farnham. He's wandered down here. He's sort of headed back up here, back towards the M3. And I wonder where he is going. But anyway, let's go into Odium. Apparently the Bell and Dragon is a pub there. Let's have a look on this one. Let's see if we can find Odium. I don't know where we were. Where is this? Binstead. Well, we have a Binstead near Arundel, but that's not where he's gone. Unfortunately, this map is indecipherable when you zoom out. So, Odium. And then we can see on this map that it's much smaller than the other one. That's what it is today. So let's find out where he goes. I don't know this neck of the woods terribly well. Odium is one of those quiet, unimproved, wide-streeted, sunny towns that is always a delight to come upon. If I may use such an expression of place, it smiled at us. It is fortunate in possessing an old spoilt coaching inn that we have been It is fortunate in possessing an unspoilt coaching inn that, I'm sorry, I'm really reading badly. I don't know why you watch any of this rubbish. Had we then been in search of quarters, would certainly have tempted us to sample its quality, for it had an air of unpretentious comfort. Since then I have heard that it possesses a fine oak-panelled room with a richly carved fireplace mantel, both dating from the Elizabethan and Jacobean days, and a quaint oak cupboard at the side for storing of wood logs. Some day I may pass that way again and take mine ease beneath the sign of the George. I'll wager I shall not be disappointed if much experience of the road travel awaits me of anything, or something, or words to that effect, which I couldn't be bothered to read. So he says that it's called the George. So the question is there a George? Let's go into the high street, because I wonder if the George still exists. So he talks of these... Oh, that's right into the sun there. Let's come round this way. So it is it would have been a nice old thingy. That's the Bell and Dragon, and I wonder if that is the old George that was. So let us come back here and see if the George exists. The George, Odium. And it does... Right. The George Odium. The George Hotel. The George Hotel. The Bell and Dragon at the George. So it is that place. Let's see if we can just get a better view of it here. Country Inn. I don't know if you can see that here. The George. That is what it is. And I don't know why it's lost its name, but there we go. Apparently that was a good place to go, and I don't know quite where it's marked on this map, but anyway, so he's toddling along in his car from there. How are we doing on the time? We're probably running out of time now. Anyway, I'm just seeing what else. Where have we got? Oh, I can't. Odium. Yeah. Oh yes, Odium is a delightful specimen of an old, drowsy, old-world town where no one seems to hurry and where the sun seems glad to shine. And we saw that, didn't we, in the street view. Its wide street tells of a less crowded age, of the spacious days gone by. The poet often sings about, when every square yard of the ground was not carefully measured up and utilised, and nearly every house in the country town was provided in the rear with a garden of some kind, as a matter of course. The railway has not found Odium out, for the nearest station to it is some 3 miles off, but Odium seems to get on very well indeed without a railway, as do several other country towns I know. Now, I don't know if the railway still goes there. There are many such small towns in England, more than possibly some people would imagine, unblessed with a railway, and as a rule these are both picturesque and pleasant places, and the motorist travelling by road, as his forefathers did, who prefers to rest in quiet spots, may possibly add his mite to their mild, if sufficient, prosperity, for he must stop and spend his money somewhere. Personally, I always strive for a real country inn. Well, he's told us this so many times. Some of the most delightful and genuinely comfortable inns I know are situated right in the heart of the country, miles from anywhere. Next, an old coaching hostelry in a rural town next best please me. It may be fancy or it may be pure prejudice on my part, but I always feel more comfortable, more at home, more at my ease in an old coaching inn, well cared for and well ordered, and with a landlord not unworthy of the house, than elsewhere. And he's told us that so many times we know this. How the original readers of these must have got bored by his personal tastes, I don't know. I delight to drive under its bridge. I delight to drive under its big archway and to descend peacefully out of the bustle of the road, out of the rain too, should the weather be wet. A man in health, once remarked a famous American who had seen much of the world, could not be contented at an old English inn. He must have in himself the cause of his discontent. In other words, if you can't enjoy yourself in a country inn, where can you? Another wealthy American, he does like to go on about his American friends, does he not? It's because he did spend some time in America, you see. Another wealthy American, seemingly impossible perhaps because of the enemy deemed the deed impossible. What? I don't know what that... His sentences really bug me sometimes. Another wealthy American... Am I reading two different pages? Wait a minute. 137. Oh, yes. That's why it didn't make sense. Stupid man that I am. I picked up two pages. Not that I can separate them. There we go. Sorry about that. Another wealthy American, recently on a visit to the old country, asked me to recommend him to a good old-fashioned rural inn. I mentioned one to him, built over 2 centuries ago, and but little altered since. And he wrote me. I don't like the way they say, and he wrote me. Surely it should be, and he wrote to me. And he wrote to me, "We are very comfortable, and we like it immensely." And this from a man used to the most luxurious of modern hotels. Odium boasts of the possession of an enormous chalk pit, which has a curious local reputation of keeping thunderstorms away. Though how a chalk pit could have any control over the weather, I fail to comprehend. However, as a countryman once remarked to me, "You travels and learns." Certainly there are spots where thunderstorms rarely or ever occur. The reason for this I've never been able to fathom. The landlord of a lovely, lonely inn at Everley on Salisbury Plain, where we spent much of the night on a previous tour, said to me, "I have never known a thunderstorm here, though such storms wander around about some distance off. They follow the water in the valley, and we escape." Possibly Odium, for some reason, may have been so favoured, though once, when driving a few miles away from here, I experienced the worst thunderstorm I was ever in. Beyond Odium, we struck upon a very pleasant stretch of country which brought us to the pretty village of Basing, and the crumbling ruins of Basing House, the story of the siege and the sack of which is needless to repeat here second hand. Thank goodness for that. This formerly fine and fortified house is now so ruined that its interest is mainly historic. Basing House. Let's just pause there to see if we can find Basing and Basing House. And let's have a look on the old maps and see if we can find it. I've no idea which way Basing is. So let us try our luck here, and let's go back to the map to see if we can find Basing. Old Basing, here we go. Presumably it is old Basing, and the ruins of Basing, Basing House temporarily closed. Let's have a look on Street View. The street. Going up here. Is Basing House behind all this, I ask you? Basing House. Is that it? Just some... It looks like a farm. I mean, I wouldn't object to it. Look at that. Lovely old... Ah, wait a minute. What's this? Here's the ruins. And look, I didn't realise that was in an old Iron Age hill fort. Or a Neolithic hill fort. Basing House Park. Can we get in there? No. Are there any pictures? Sometimes they put these funny picture things up, don't they? Old Basing. Never been there, but that looks fascinating. Let's go back here. If I could find Basing. Old Basing. Here we go. Ah. So that's the Basing House as is, but this is the Citadel. Look at that. Citadel, it says. Basing Park. Tower, wall. And peat moor on the side. Basing. That is fascinating, isn't it? Let's just see if we can find some pictures. That's the old mill that we saw, but Basing Park then. Basing Park House. And here, let's have a look at the images of Basing Park. So, there's a house. Oh, and there's that little garden thing. But can we see the... You don't see much of any more than what we've already seen. That is an old photograph. It's probably more like... What is that? I don't... This is from 1952. Aerial views. Oh, Britain from above. Look at that. But look, you can see all the land where there was a castle here. Look at this. You can see where the towers used to be. That's very interesting. Let's have a look at another one. Yeah, that's amazing. And there's the map. Let's go back to this. Oh yes, you can see here the towers, or at least earth marks and markings. How are we doing on the time? We've got about 7 minutes. Let's just read a little bit more. So we know about the chalk pit. I don't know where the chalk pit is. Oh, old chalk pit. Hold on. Let's just quickly look at that. Look, old chalk pit. Presumably, I wonder if the chalk pit was used to build the house, or this thing. So let's go back here. Let's see. Where's the chalk pit? It would have long been filled in. I wonder if it's in here. Can't see this old chalk pit where the... But there's a crown. I wonder if he stays at the crown. Probably. Probably not. Anyway, so that's where he is. Let's go back to the book and see what he says. Right. Blah, 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 blah. Clever lie. What? Hang on a minute. So he doesn't want to... he said... Oh, yeah, the church at Basing. Oh, beyond Basing. Well, hang on. Beyond Odium, we struck upon a very pleasant stretch of country road that brought us to the village of Basing. Right, okay. And the crumbling ruins of Basing House, the story of the seas. This formerly the church... This formerly fine and fortified house is now so ruined that it is mainly historic. The church of Basing is interesting. Oh, he's not going to tell us anything about it. And possesses some quaint gargoyles. It's always nice to have a quaint gargoyle. I want to stick one on my thing. Julia's put some links in there. British battles. Let's have a quick look at that. I'll just click the link and see where that takes us. Oh my! How about this? Well done, Julia. Look at this. So, on these earthworks, there was me saying it was Neolithic, but actually it looks like maybe it was, who knows? I'd like to see more about that. But wow, look, that is an amazing picture. Is this, what period is this? Is this through the English Civil War, presumably? Look at that beautiful, beautiful. I mean, this is obviously a artist's impression, but quite fantastic. Let's have a look at this other site. The Siege of Basing House. Oh yeah, the English Civil War. It's funny, now it's coming back to me that actually, there we go, Roundheads and Cavaliers. It's coming back to me, Basing is, there's lots of different people. How do I shut this off? Oh, I see, it's all on the same page. The siege and destruction of Hampshire during the English Civil War was one of England's greatest houses between 1642 and I guess the whole thing was brought down, was it? No, go back. Well, that is fascinating. Siege of Basing. So that would be an interesting thing to research and read up about. But you can do that yourselves, of course. Julia's put the links in it, and an article on the Siege of Basing House. Well, that is fascinating. Thank you very much, Julia, for that. I don't think he is going to stay there for very long. He talks about the gargoyles at Basing Church. Within it are preserved some helmets and other relics of the siege found when digging about the ruins. In a niche of the west wall is a finely carved image of the Virgin and Child, said to have been preserved from the Puritan fury by being hidden with ivy purposely trained over it. A clever idea, cleverly carried out. Then again we found ourselves in a region of narrow lanes, hilly and very twisty ones to boot, so that our progress was slow and often impeded besides by farmers' carts, wagons and cattle. For once the country lanes were not deserted, yet the land seemed sparsely inhabited. But for some cause, in that particular district, the farmers appeared very busy on the road that day. We passed by one or two pretty hamlets and solitary cottages, and that is all I can remember of the country till we reached Aldermaston, with its green meadows and lazy waterways. And that's where we're going to stop the story, because at Aldermaston, the lovely Julia and I got on to Ed Sage's Norfolk Broad's boat last year, and we had an adventure on the Kennet and Avon Canal. And I just want to hang on, Kennet and Avon, and just see where, I don't know where that was. I can't remember what we called it now. But that was last year. Kennet and Avon, we go to Bath. No, that was, we've done a number of these, but I can't bring it up. Our journey on the canal last year. I wonder if it comes up if I put 2020. Was it? It was that year, wasn't it? No, it's not coming up. I don't know why. Lots of our journeys did come up, as you can see. I wonder if Aldermaston is where we got on. No, maybe Julia can find. Can you find, Julia, where we are? I can't find it. Our canal trip on the Kennet and Avon Canal from last year. I can't even remember what we called it now. Canal 2023. Anyway, we did it. We went out there on Ed's boat, but I can't remember it. Anyway, how fascinating. Thank you very much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Wasn't that very interesting? And I can't speak. I used to be able to speak, used to be able to string a sentence together, but I think something has happened to the old brain. Maybe I'm just tired. But the place that we were just looking at, Basing, and the siege at Basing, that was very interesting. Anyway, charm of the road, James John Hissey, having his Hissey fits from time to time, and we will go to Aldermaston on the next one. So I hope you enjoy that. And we did go on we'll tell you about it next time, I think, because maybe he will go a little bit along that journey. But until then, thank you so much for watching. Take care, look after yourselves, and toodle pip, and I'll see you next time.